Okay, so now we're going to learn. First of all, let's learn why are the prices of agricultural crops. Now, this has been repeated in the latest 2022 paper also. Why are the prices of agricultural crops unstable in the market? Now, usually when you go to the market to buy vegetables and all, always the price is different. No? This week's price is not next week's price. Now, that is not the same, no, guys, with the other goods. Now, if you take industrial goods, laptops, phones, and all, usually the price is stable. No, now even if you take, let's say, a biscuit packet, ice cream, same price, right? This week you go also same price, next week also 120. Let's say this week also 120. But vegetables is not the same. If you go anywhere to buy vegetables, today they will say 500 grams is 50 rupees, tomorrow it's 60 rupees. Day after tomorrow, it's again 40 rupees. In the next day, let's say it's 100 rupees. So these agricultural goods are often, very often, the price keeps changing. So that is why we are going to find out why is that, right? So what are we going to learn? Why are the prices of agricultural goods unstable in the market? Okay, what do you all think? Why do you think the prices of agricultural goods are unstable in the market? Why is it always changing? So why can't you have like a price of, let's say, tomatoes set at 50 rupees for the next 3-4 months? Why? For the next 3-4 months, why can't the price of tomatoes be 50 rupees? Why is it changing from day to day or week to week? What's the reason? Can you think and tell me, okay, what type of demand and supply do you have for something like this? For agricultural goods, can you tell me the demand for these agricultural goods? Is it elastic or inelastic? Think about rice, tomatoes, vegetables, agricultural goods. Demand is inelastic, right? Because these are usually like essential goods, no? So therefore, demand is inelastic. What can you tell about the supply of these goods? Supply of agricultural goods. That is also inelastic, right? Because you can't easily increase the supply, no? If you want to increase, you have to grow and all of that. Yeah. So supply is also inelastic. Why? Because it takes time to change the supply. Okay. Because you can't easily, if today the price of tomato increase, you can't increase the supply of tomato today itself. So demand and supply for these goods are what? Demand and supply for these goods are inelastic. Okay. What are they? Demand and supply is inelastic. Now let me put this into a diagram. Okay. Let me put this into a diagram. Come over here. Now listen very carefully. Yeah. Let me put this into a diagram. Let's assume we have the demand for agricultural goods, inelastic demand. So I'm drawing a very steep demand curve. Inelastic supply. Okay, a very steep supply curve as well. Based on that, let's say we have the equilibrium price. Now we are trying to find out why is this price often unstable. Let's say currently, we'll talk about rice widow. Let's say currently a kilo of rice is 100 rupees. Okay, let's say samba rice, 1 kilo is 100 rupees. And the quantity sold in the market, let's say, we don't know. Let's assume 10 tons of rice is sold that we don't carry. Now, guys, my next question to you. Does the farmer have perfect control on the amount of rice that he produces? What do you think? Now, let's say before the harvest, now let's say farmer is now only planting the seeds and harvesting. Can he definitely say in 6 months, I will be able to produce 10 tons of rice? Does he have that perfect control properly? Now, for a manufactured good, you can do that. No, you can say, okay, I'm only going to produce 100 of this. But can a farmer have perfect control over what he produces? Do we have that? Yes or no? Does the farmer have control Does the farmer have control over the supply of this agricultural good? Agricultural good. Cultural good. Most of y'all are saying no. Why no? Why do you think the farmer doesn't have control? Because farmer can't say exactly how much will come now. Because what can happen, guys? There can be natural disasters. Right now, for example, maybe there is a flood. Right? There can be natural disaster. What if a flood comes and wipes off the entire thing? There can be weather conditions, right? So weather can be favorable. If the weather is favorable, then the output might increase. Maybe if the weather is unfavorable, let's say no rain, right? Then bad, okay? Then there can be threats from what? Threats from insects, or we'll say pests, right? Pests, or even let's say animals, right? Let's say elephants and all, or let's say even different animals coming and running over your crops. That can happen. Then what else, guys? There can be what? Maybe there can be fertilizer issues, right? Fertilizer issues. So sometimes the fertilizer is very good. So then maybe you get a really good output. Sometimes the fertilizer you put, like Gota comes and bans chemical fertilizer. Now you put what? Organic fertilizer, output is very bad, right? So fertilizer issues sometimes can be favorable, sometimes can be unfavorable. You don't know, can be good or bad. So because of all these reasons, what can we say now? We can say the farmer does not have what? The farmer does not have perfect control over the supply. Is that clear? Did you understand that part? Demand and supply is inelastic, and the farmer does not have control over the supply because he doesn't know what will come in 6 months. In 6 months, maybe 11 tons might come, 8 tons might come, 5 tons might come. He doesn't know how much of rice will come. Is everyone okay until there? Fine. Others also? Yes. Okay. So then, now see what will happen. Let's say, right, now farmer doesn't have perfect control now. Let's say the ideal quantity of rice needed in this market is 10 tons. Let's say in Sri Lanka, for the Sri Lankan population, you only need 10 tons of rice, we'll assume, okay? But let's say for some reason, the weather was perfect. The no insects came and destroyed the crops also. The fertilizer used also nicely worked. Then what would happen? What would happen to the supply? What would happen to the supply? The supply would increase, right? So then if the supply increases even a little, look at this. This is the most interesting story. If the supply increases a very little, right? Now, not much, see, a small increase in the supply, okay? So a small increase in supply, now let's say 10 goes to 11 tons, 1 ton more. That's all that has happened. But can you see what happens to the price in the market? Can you see a small increase in the supply, right? 10 has become 11, right? Let's say 10 kilos now became 11. What happened to the price? The price in the market went from 100 to, let's say it went from 100 to 60, a huge fall in the price. So can you see one reason why the price is unstable? Now, can the farmer control the supply of rice? Is it the farmer's fault that he got 11 tons of rice? No, right? The weather was good. The fertilizer he put has worked properly. Insects have not come and destroyed his crop. So can you blame the farmer and say, piss at them and why did you go and increase the supply? He didn't do anything, no. He just, in his plot of land, he put the seeds and he planted the normal way he did. But everything worked perfectly. He doesn't have control over the weather and all, no. Nothing happened. Supply increased. 11 tons of rice was produced. all of a sudden, price of rice goes down to 60. Can you see? A small increase. Now, farmer doesn't have control also, because he doesn't have control by little. Even if the supply of rice goes up, price will go down a lot. Then what is the other way of this? What if the opposite happens? What if, let's say, the crops have been damaged by some pests, or some wild elephants have come and damaged the crops? Maybe for some season there was no rain, right? So some crops have died and dried off. What will happen to supply then? If that happens, then the supply might decrease a little, right? The pests have weight and all of that. So now see what happens if the supply decreases. If the supply decreases, let's say goes from S to S2, now see what happens. See, a small reduction. Let's say here what has happened, 10 tons of rice has become 9 tons of rice. So some farmers, their crops have got destroyed. But what happens to the price of rice? Look at this. Huge increase in the price of rice, right? The price of rice is now, let's say, 150 rupees in the market. So can you see a small reduction in the supply of rice, or even a small increase in the supply of rice, or even any agricultural product causes what? Causes a huge change in the price. That is why the price of agricultural goods are unstable in the market. Does the farmer have control over this? No. So you can't. Now, can the farmer perfectly predict and make sure that only 10 tons of rice come into the market? Can't. No. No way. Because sometimes he might get a good crop, sometimes he might get a bad harvest. Good harvest, bad harvest. So in that situation, suppose he gets a good harvest or bad harvest, making the supply to increase a little or fall a little, a small change in the supply is enough to cause a big change in the price. That is why the prices of agricultural goods are often unstable in the market. Is that clear? That's the story. Yes. Fine. Others also. Right. Guys, if you're a farmer, can you think and tell me which one do you think? No, for demand, demand doesn't really change. We don't talk about demand changing. We'll talk about supply chain. Okay. If you're a farmer, what do you think is better for you? If you get a good harvest or a bad harvest? Think about the farmer's total revenue and see price into quantity. Which one was good for him? If he get a good harvest or a bad harvest? Think now, if the farmer gets a good harvest, his revenue is 60 into 11. Can you tell me how much is his total revenue? If he gets a good harvest, the price of rice is 60 rupees. 11 tons he is producing. Let's say he can get 660. Okay. If he gets a bad harvest, how much is his revenue? Bad harvest, he can sell 1 kilo at 150, and then what happens? 1 kilo at 150, 9 kilos he can sell. How much is his total revenue? 1,350. So which one is better for the farmer? Is it better for the farmer to get a good harvest or a bad harvest? The farmer will be happy if he gets what? If he gets a bad harvest. That is why I think I explained this in one of the classes before, right? Remember this, there was a saying in economics that says, right? The farmer, right? This was there in news, right? This was a news headline like 100, 200 days, 200, maybe 100 years ago, right? A farmer, what? A farmer hanged himself due to a good harvest. Why did he hang himself due to a good harvest? Because when he got a good harvest, the price went down a lot. His revenue was only 660. His total income, total revenue was very low. So that is the reason behind that. hoping that part is also clear. That's a little bit additional. There's a question. In here, how do we interpret the answer? Like, need to draw a graph and explain. Yes, better draw a graph and explain. Okay. You can draw a graph, but I don't think the answer scheme will have a graph, but you can definitely draw a graph and explain. Is that part clear, guys? The whole story about why is the price of agricultural goods unstable in the market now? Okay. Right. Now we'll talk about the next question. What can the government do to make the prices stable? What do you think the government can do, guys? Now, why is the price unstable? Because the supply is increasing and decreasing. If you can make sure that the supply is 10 tons, right? If the supply is 10 tons, if you can make sure that it is 10 tons, then the price won't increase or decrease. What do you think the government can do? I'll put that also in this board itself. What can the government do? What can the government do to make the prices stable? What can they do? We'll start off with a new one. One thing they can do is they can implement a buffer stock system. What is this? They can implement a buffer stock system. What is a buffer stock system? Very simple. Let's say for some reason the farmer gets a good harvest. Let's say for some reason the pest didn't come, weather was good, farmer got a good harvest. But if this additional 1 ton, now ideal is 10 tons, no? If this additional 1 ton comes into the market, it reduces the price from 100 to 60. So what do you think the government can do, guys? Government can purchase that extra stock. Yeah. Now that additional one, 10 tons should come to the market ideally. But if 11 tons come only, price goes to 60. So government can make sure so that the stuff, what can the government do? They can purchase that excess stock. So then what happens? 11 tons won't come into the market. Supply would back again go to S. So if the government feels that මේ පාර වැඩියෙන් එනවා market එකට, what will they do? They will soon purchase the excess and keep. And what will they do maybe with that? They can export it, or later, let's say in some situation, supply decreases. Let's say supply decreases, the farmer has a bad harvest. Then what can the government do? They can then release the buffer stock. Why earlier they would have purchased and kept something. So in case the farmer has a bad stock, something like rice you can store and keep. Farmer has a bad harvest, they will now release that buffer stock. Somehow they will make sure the supply stays at what? Supply stays at S. So if there is a good harvest, if the supply is going to increase, government will purchase the buffer stock and reduce the supply to S. If the supply is going to decrease, government will release buffer stock and increase the supply to S. So somehow the government will make sure the supply stays at S. Why? If the supply stays at the S curve, then the price will be 100. Price will be stable. Is that clear? That's implement a buffer stock system. Clear? Same. Others also. Okay, these are interesting stories, right? So you need to understand. Right. Another thing the government can do. What else can the government do, guys? Something else. What else can the government do? What do you all think? They can pay the farmers, right? Pay the farmers to reduce, right, their supply, right? So sometimes farmer is saying, mata meka, what, let me produce this, right? My harvest is good, let me produce this and all of that. But government knows if the good harvest comes to the market, price will go down. So what does the government do? government tells some farmers, right, May season එක ඔයා produce කරන්න එපා, you stay at home, right? Because now remember these market supply, guys, it's not one farmer, right? It's a market supply. So government tells some of the farmers, let's say there are 100 farmers, and let's say if the government predicts that this season the harvest and everything will be good, government will tell some of the farmers, right, May season එක ඔයා produce කරන්න එපා, I will give you some money for you to survive. Let's say season is for 6 months. So government will pay the farmer to reduce his supply, or in other words, to reduce or not, okay, I'll come back, reduce their supply or even not produce. So government will do that. Is that clear? So if a good harvest is going to come, because if a good harvest comes, price will go down. No? So government will tell some of the farmers, "Ani produce karanne epa. May season එක you don't produce, let only these people produce. I will give you some money on behalf of that." Is that clear? So somehow they don't let the supply increase to S1. They keep it at S itself. Shape. Fine, guys. Yes, can you let me know if you're okay? If not, ask question. Okay. So they are not letting it to come S1. Right. What's another thing that they can do? Another thing the government can do is government can limit the use of land. Now let's say all these farmers, now let's say if all the farmers go and produce in 5 acres of land, let's say farmers own 5 acres of land. If they go and produce in all these 5 acres of land, let's say a very good harvest will come into the market, supply will increase, unstable prices go down. So government will nicely calculate. Government will calculate and see, okay, 10 tons of rice in the how much of land should we cultivate in? So government likewise will go and tell the farmers, look here farmer, I know you have 5 acres of land, but don't produce in all 5, produce only in 3 acres of land. Other 2 acres, just keep it or plant something else. So if you're harvesting rice, only harvest it in 3 acres of land. They can do that. Again, preventing an increase in the supply, because an increase in the supply will cause a huge fall. What else can the government do? Government can also implement price floors. In other words, this is what you call minimum prices. Now, sometimes what happens? If the huge supply comes into the market, price in the market goes down. So government feels 60 rupees for a kilo of rice is unfair for the farmer. The government will set a minimum price at 100. Even though equilibrium price is 60, given that there is a minimum price of 100, consumer will also have to pay 100, producer will also receive 100. Price becomes stable again. Supply increase benefit for the consumer, yes, but bad for the farmer. So they will not let the supply increase. Another thing the government can do, if the supply decreases, they can import, right, agricultural goods. Right now, let's say if the supply decreases, let's say you had a bad harvest, S went to S2, then the price would go to 150, no? So to prevent the price going to 150, what will the government do? They can import agricultural goods, right? So whatever the shortage, they will import. Okay, they can do that. Then maybe another thing they can do is, right, the government can provide proper market information. Now, sometimes farmers also don't know, no guys, these fellows are not educated fellows. They don't know that if they increase their supply, the price will go down. They will only lose at the end of the day. They don't know those. So government can, predict the demand and everything. And government can tell the farmer, they can provide proper information to these farmers. They can tell the farmer, look here farmer, right? For the next 6 months, we estimate that the demand for rice will be this much. So only produce this much rice. Don't produce more. So government can give them that information, because farmer doesn't know, guys, how much how much of this thing will be there. So government can come, give that information. And yes, government can provide quotas as well. So all of that is there, guys. So I'll put that to number 7. Number 7, government can provide production quotas to farmers. So they can say, look here, farmer, produce only this much. Don't produce more than that. Your quota is only this much. That way, they limit the supply. So those are different things the government can do to make sure the prices are stable in the market. Is that okay? How does this impact the government? What do you mean impact the government? Since the government will put rules and regulations and stuff, right? So they will import or they will export, they will buy the excess supply, they will put a rule saying, you know, you can't produce more than this, don't produce, they will give information. So those kind of things what the government would do. So coming back to your 2018, guys, you all can take a, can someone take a screenshot and share it? You can't share it on the past paper class, no, it's admins only. Sorry about that. Right. So coming back to these two questions, right, that is the answer for this. Why are the prices of primary products such as agricultural goods unstable in the market? You can explain my story. Okay. Then next one, what measures could be taken by the government to stabilize the prices is the 7 points that I mentioned on the right. So why are the prices unstable? What can the government do to stabilize the prices? 2018 A levels. There is a similar question in the 2022 A level paper as well. Is this fine, guys? Shall we wrap it up? Done? Right. So hoping the area is fine. I'll separately upload this video as well.